Here is a story based on your prompt. The Battle of Adrianople. The Roman Empire, in the year 378 AD, was a colossus under strain. Divided between east and west, it faced a crisis not of a single army, but of a people on the move. To the north of the Danube, the Gothic tribes, displaced and desperate, had been granted entry into the empire. But Roman treachery and hunger had turned desperate guests into a vengeful horde. And now they roamed the province of Thrace. A storm waiting to break. On the morning of August 9th, the storm found its focal point. Outside the city of Adrianople, the dust of two armies rose to meet the blistering sun. In the Roman camp, the air was thick with the smell of oiled leather and sweat. Emperor Valens, his face a mask of imperial pride and simmering impatience, had chosen to fight. He had received word that his nephew, the Western Emperor Gratian, was marching to his aid with veteran legions. But Valens would not share the glory. The reports said the Gothic host was a rabble, a mob of farmers and families. Victory, he was assured, would be swift and his alone. Across the plain, the Gothic wagons were drawn into a massive, sprawling laager, a fortress on wheels. Within and around this mobile city waited the Gothic warriors. They were not the disorganized rabble Roman scouts had described. Under the shrewd command of Fritigern, they were a hardened, desperate people fighting for their very survival. Their nobles, men like Alatheus and Saphrax, commanded the fierce Gothic cavalry, the true hammer of their army. The Roman legions advanced with a majestic, terrifying discipline. The clip-clop of hooves, the rhythmic tramp of armored feet, and the dull clank of shields locking into the testudo formation was the sound of an empire asserting its will. They were confident, these soldiers of Rome. They had crushed barbarians for centuries. The initial exchanges were in Rome's favor. Their skirmishers drove back the Gothic foot soldiers, who feigned retreat, luring the Roman lines forward. The sun climbed higher, becoming a merciless ally to the Goths. The Romans, in their heavy armor, began to bake. Thirst parched their throats, and fatigue seeped into their limbs. They had marched for hours under the oppressive heat to reach the field. Then came the moment that shattered the Roman world. From the horizon, a new cloud of dust appeared, moving fast. It was not Gratian's legions. It was the Gothic cavalry, led by Alatheus and Saphrax, returning from a foraging mission. They saw the Roman army stretched out before them, its flank exposed and vulnerable. With a unified, guttural roar, they charged. They hit the Roman left flank like a thunderbolt. The Roman cavalry, largely comprised of lightly armed scouts and mercenaries, shattered on impact. They broke and fled, leaving the left wing of the legions completely exposed. The Gothic horsemen did not pause. They wheeled and began to roll up the Roman line, driving inward like a wedge. Inside the laager, Fritigern saw his moment. He gave the order, and the entire Gothic host surged forward from the wagon fortress. The Romans, who moments before had been pressing an attack, now found themselves surrounded. The majestic battle lines disintegrated into 1,000 desperate, individual fights. The discipline of the legions, their greatest strength, became a death trap. Packed too tightly by the encircling enemy, men could not raise their swords to swing. They were pressed against one another, suffocating in their own ranks. Easy prey for Gothic spears and swords that stabbed down from above. Emperor Valens, his bodyguard slain around him, was lost in the chaos. Some said a common Gothic arrow found its mark. Others whispered that he was mortally wounded and carried to a nearby farmhouse, which the Goths, unaware of their prize, surrounded and burned to the ground. His body was never recovered. The emperor, the embodiment of Roman power in the East, had vanished into the smoke and dust of his own ruin. The battle dissolved into a massacre that lasted until nightfall. 2/3 of the Eastern Roman army lay dead on the field, including many of its highest-ranking officers. It was the most catastrophic defeat Rome had suffered since Cannae, 6 centuries earlier. As the sun set on August 9, 378 AD, it set on an old certainty. The Battle of Adrianople proved that the mailed fist of the legion was no longer invincible. The age of the infantryman was passing, and the age of the knight was dawning. The Gothic tribes, once refugees, had broken the Roman army and killed a Roman emperor. They had not just won a battle, they had cracked the very foundations of the world. The Colossus was not just strained, it was bleeding, and its enemies now knew it could fall.